Cool.
Hi, Stuart. Hi,
Hi.
Jennifer.
Hi,
Hi.
how are you?
This episode, I'm fine. How are you? This episode of I've Never Met a Woman Architect Before podcast is sponsored by Eggersman USA. Eggersman USA, a family-owned company crafting modern German cabinetry for every room in and outside your home. From luxury custom kitchens and wardrobes to sleek outdoor living spaces, Eggersman USA delivers timeless design and precision craftsmanship. Each piece is made to order in our state-of-the-art factory in Germany using exceptional materials and limitless finishes. In partnership with Schmalenbach Designs and Cubic Outdoor Living, Eggersman USA offers whole home solutions tailored to your lifestyle. Discover more at eggersmanusa.com. And they are also being sponsored by Fleetwood Windows. Since 1961, dealers, architects, and builders have trusted Fleetwood's sleek, innovative designs to elevate their projects, enhance client satisfaction, and grow their businesses. Our versatile range includes slimline series, custom shapes, and massive sizes, all crafted to meet the high expectations of affluent homeowners and luxury developers seeking timeless beauty and enduring quality. By listening to industry professionals, we discovered that many brands cut corners with cheap parts and thinner frames, compromising long-term value. Fleetwood took a different path. We engineered a proprietary line of rollers, drainage systems, and hardware designed for uncompromising performance, security, and durability. These innovations help our partners deliver not just premium homes, but lasting legacies of luxury and sustainability. With Fleetwood, you're not just offering clients high-end products, you're providing them with solutions built to endure for generations. Supported by a renowned transferable lifetime warranty, our windows and doors offer a rare combination of luxury, peace of mind, and environmental responsibility. Join us in building a future where success is defined by prosperity, balance, and a purpose-driven commitment to sustainability. Unlock prosperity with Fleetwood Windows and Doors, engineered for professionals, designed for the elite, and crafted for a lasting legacy. Thank you, Fleetwood Doors and Windows. So my guests today are Stuart Narofsky, FAIA, and Jennifer, is it Rusch? It's Rusch, right? Rusch, okay, and Jennifer Rusch of Narofsky Architecture. Stuart Narofsky, FAIA, is the principal of Narofsky Architecture, a multidiscipline design firm. An AIA member since 1983, he was the recipient of AIA Long Island's Lifetime Achievement Award in 2013 and a Special Recognition Award in 2023. His projects are highly recognized through AIA Long Island Architecture Awards and other prestigious national and international design awards. The firm has been regularly featured in national and international publications, movies, TV series, and exhibitions. He has taught and served on juries of New York Institute of Technology, Drexel University, and Pratt Institute. Stuart has lectured and run workshops at various universities in Bolivia, Argentina, Poland, and Hungary. Dedicated to pro bono service, he was honored by the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center of Nassau County for his work in designing a children's memorial garden and for the production of an accompanying short film. Stuart served on the Long Island chapter's board for many years and was president in 1999. For almost 40 years, he has participated in many chapter programs. Stuart has also committed much service to AIA national knowledge communities, including the advisory board of CRAN, Custom Residential Architects Network, where I met him for 14 years and as the CRAN chair in 2018. He also has lectured and presented at AIA national conferences for the past 25 years. In 2016, Stuart was inducted as a fellow of the American Institute of Architects.
Time to retire.
Stuart, pardon me.
It's time to retire.
Jennifer Rusch, managing partner of Narofsky Architecture. Ms. Rusch joined the firm in 2003. In 2003, and that's Fleetwood. In 2003, as managing partner, Jennifer's focus is to create a creative studio environment while capitalizing on emerging talent. She leads the interior design team of the She leads the interior design team of the studio, collaborating with Stuart and his architectural team in a seamless transition through the various stages of design. Jennifer has worked in various fields in design, such as medical, residential, hospitality, retail, and commercial, as well as working in interior design. She has experience in architecture and construction, including full project administration from client program initiation to construction oversight for custom single-family residences, retail stores, and corporate office interiors. She has several years of experience working in the hospitality industry, where she has focused designing public spaces such as lobbies, restaurants, meeting rooms, pre-function areas, corridors, and restrooms. Having worked on projects both grand and quaint, Jennifer's priority is to provide her client with the environment they envision. It is a process in which the client must always remain comfortable, whether the needs be extreme attention to design, detail, or fast-track installation. For over 35 years, Jennifer has devoted time to students and emerging professionals participating in workshops both in the US and South America. She has attended design juries at New York Institute of Technology and Drexel University. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
So what have you guys been doing for the summer?
Working
Working.
pretty much. Yeah. No, it's been good actually. We're pretty busy. We're going away, so we've been putting a big push on, before we go away to get as much as we can done and get everything situated.
Uh-huh.
We're
And you guys
actually-
have kids.
Yeah. They're, graduated, or one is in his senior in maritime, and our daughter
okay.
is in a creative school studying animation, and she just finished her first year. So yeah, they're kind of older and self-reliant, thank
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah. One of my kids is in animation.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he's still in school for it, and he has a connection in LA, but I don't know whether we can really send him to LA at this point. We're in San Diego now, and I lived in LA for 10 years, lived in Venice Beach, but from 89 to 99 before we moved down here. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I know. We're from the East Coast, so we looked at going to California, but she just wanted to stay on the East Coast. So she's studying in Savannah, but I think she's going to find her way to the West Coast.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll see.
She's talking
Yeah.
West Coast, find an internship for next summer, so we'll see what happens.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then your son is at the Maritime Academy?
He's at SUNY Maritime, it's called, and he's
Okay, that one
currently
there, so not the one out here.
Right.
the one in New
Okay.
York. And he's currently on a ship, and they're in the Arctic Circle as we speak.
Oh, wow.
So pretty exciting things going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, I think we're good to go with Fleetwood because they're messaging me now, they're texting.
Great.
Yeah, it's fine. First I'm gonna ask Jennifer, and then I'm gonna ask Stuart to answer the same questions, and I can repeat the same question again. But what are your first recollections of experiencing architecture, Jennifer?
Oh, well, for me, I think art was the first thing that I was drawn to. I wanted to be an art major, actually. But I think also because I would travel around and go and look at a lot of museums, my mom was really big into art. I think experiencing a lot of the spaces, especially in the museums like the Guggenheim, again, we're here, always it was like a piece of art. So I think experiencing those spaces are really what drove me to be like, oh, I can do this and still use an art background, and still be doing art in a way, just three-dimensional art. And so I think those kind of spaces like the Guggenheim just stands out for me. But yeah, and I think that's really where I'm at, because we're from the city. So I'm born and raised Queens, Stu as well. It was kind of weird to go into architecture, not really knowing what's out there, you know, so it was mostly those kind of city spaces, urban environments.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I grew up in Pittsburgh and it was kind of the same thing where I wanted to go to art school, but I was like thinking, oh, I'm not going to be able to like make any money as an artist. And I don't know whether I make any money as an architect either, but that was kind of like the same thing. Like a lot of people seem to be more math oriented, you know, like I just talked to
Right.
somebody there, they're like, oh, I was really into math, you know, and I was like, really? Like
Yeah, I never
I'm
understood that.
horrible
Yeah.
at math. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm horrible. You know, she goes, well, we use math every day. And I'm like, well, I mean, I can do multiplication and division. I mean, I can add. I said, I'm talking about like algebra. Like algebra was like never,
Yeah.
you know, because it's a step-by-step process for me. So it was just, those processes are more difficult.
You're
for my
good at
brain.
math. He's good at math. Anytime we
He's
have
good.
math issues at home, I'm always like, ask dad, because I have no idea.
Yeah.
Geometry, no clue, whatever.
But unfortunately,
Well,
that's
and
why
the
the
math,
guidance counselor sent me into engineering to start for the first 2 years of college.
Mhm. And then did you go then? Did you, for 2 years you went?
I went to college. My first 2 years were in engineering. Uh, you know, candidly, I didn't know much about architecture. As Jen said, growing up in an urban environment, we were surrounded by it. We really
Yeah.
took everything that we lived in for granted. I mean, everything was so accessible. Hop on the subway and go to Manhattan, traveling in the subway since I was probably 11, 12 years old. And you know,
Yeah.
it was the experience. So I really didn't know what architecture was. It's not something I clicked with. I was great draftsman in high school. I kind of took
Mhm.
those kind of courses and I was good in math. And so of course the guidance counselors, most of them knew very little about architecture, right? So
Yeah.
you know, they were, oh, so it's only natural you'll just start in engineering. And it wasn't until my second year in engineering that I had an architect um, that I took an elective course in architecture, like an intro course, that was my first you know exposure to it. And
Uh-huh.
I really took to it, and the architect who was teaching that course recommended that I transfer. So you got to get out of engineering. You've got more creativity inside of you than just being stuck, you know, crunching numbers and drafting ductwork and electrical systems. So
But what was your first, like, I mean, like, I keep thinking he has a really good story about, again, we were in urban environments growing up, different places,
yeah.
different times of different periods, let's say, but about your cousin who lived in the
Oh, well, yeah. So one of the projects in this elective course was to design a home. Now, growing up, I only had, as large as my family was, we were all in Brooklyn and Queens. I had one aunt who was on Long Island and lived in a typical post-war split-level home, which I thought was incredible. So when it came time to designing a house, I drew her split level.
Uh-huh.
And the teacher was like, he didn't understand like what I was doing, like the idea of thinking about designing a house. And I said, well, isn't this a house? Because I didn't relate to the idea that one was designing anything. To me, it was like, oh, here's a house. I liked it. I kind of went there, took notes, and then I was just drafting it. So I
Mhm.
really was disconnected from the idea that you would conceive something, that you would think of something in abstract terms and then start designing.
That's the way that the drafting programs are kind of set up in high schools also, because a lot of those people, they're not architects, they're like teaching, they're like drafting instructions. So they did, and then, you know, then they, you know, decided to do like one of the people that was one of my instructors at the technical school that I went to at the time, like he was a landscape architect, and a landscape architect in Pittsburgh is probably pretty like not not done very often, right? So he was like teaching there, so he didn't really know about this. So he would just say like, oh yeah, draw a thing. And so I would kind of design it, but it was more like drafting, you know, when I look at it now and I'm like, what was I doing here? You know,
Yeah.
because I still have the plan, like what was going on? But it was kind of, you know, it was like it was a ranch style, like kind of like the mid-century modern thing where you have like the big space and it's got the, you know, trapezoidal windows and stuff like that. But yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's funny, like split level, like I can remember they would do split level homes, right? Like I grew up in pretty much a four square, you know, because it had been built like at the beginning of, you know, the first century, the last first century. But that people like out in the suburbs would have split levels, you know. And so my grandmother would, like, later on in life, she would babysit for people whose parents would like go on these trips and they didn't want to leave their teenagers at home. And so that was kind of my experience of, like, you know, being like out in these things and them all having these split level homes. So it's funny that you talk about the split level, because it's like, yeah, before that, I didn't know what a split level was until I was like, you know, 8th grade or something, like maybe 6th grade or something like that. Yeah.
What happens?
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, I think in the sort of high school level, or, you know, there isn't a lot of exposure to things like architecture. I mean, you know, there's art programs, and obviously all the obvious math and other courses, but it's rare that you have a school that and that even has a teacher that's aware of what architecture is and
Mm,
discusses it in those terms. And when they do, it's more about building. It's less about, again, the design. It's more about, you know, learning about how to build a house, or, you know, something of
yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like when
Agree.
we go to Cal Poly Pomona, we can
Technical.
tell like all of the people from that went to school in Orange County, because all of their houses, like at the beginning, they all look like tract houses in Orange County. That's what a house looks like, right? You know, and you're like, what was it? You know, I was like from the East Coast, right? So I had this idea, and then, you know, moving out here, and then you know, we lived in a tract house out here that was like the typical like 70s or 80s tract house, you know. And then, I mean, I live right in a 50s tract house now, so it's with an addition that I did do in the back, but you know, it's, yeah.
But, you know, and I don't think it changed much. I spent a lot of years teaching. I was at New York Tech for over 20 years teaching, and I found that we were New York Tech had a New York campus and a Long Island campus. So the campus on Long Island really attracted mostly a lot of local students,
Mm,
regional students. And I found that early on, because there isn't a lot, especially in residential and suburban areas, there's not a lot of good architecture, or there wasn't. It's getting better. But, you know,
mhm,
when you travel around, you didn't see a lot. And so the students were doing what I did. They were just sort of regurgitating what they experienced day to day. They weren't reaching out, and it wasn't until we really, you know, pushed the idea of going to the library and doing research and trying to learn outside of the classroom, outside of the
yeah,
studio, what architecture is about, and, you know,
yeah,
assign
yeah,
precedents for them to study. And just like me, when I finally did transfer to architecture, it was like such an eye opener. You know, my first year was awful, frankly. I was so rigid because it's coming out of engineering and drafting. They
mm,
really had to work at me to loosen up, and then I started getting in with a great group of students that we became all close, working in the studio, and they started introducing to me, like, their favorite architects, their favorite building, and then going
yeah.
to the library. Of course, there was no online then, so going to the library, going into these books, and you're going, oh my God, wow, why aren't people doing this? You know? So
Seeing plans, you know, right? Like, because if you're looking at a book on like one of the, you know, architects or whatever, they'll show the plans a lot, you know, where before you just see like these images of maybe a front facade or something, and then you don't really know like how the plan and the elevation and kind of the whole design are working together. And then once you start to kind of see like, you know, the plans, like, oh, okay, they like took this apart from this, and, you know,
yeah,
like reworking existing functions of the house or different spaces, you know.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what 3 classic buildings do you like and why?
Oh, gosh,
Uh,
you do
I,
that one.
I
I have
well, you know, it's, just the word classic, but
Oh yeah, it's not classical, it's
no,
like
I
classic
know,
iconic.
but
Yeah, yeah.
at this point, anything last century could be classic. But I think for me, um, something that I just recollect this, and it just so straight in my mind when I was in my last year at New York Tech, I had this idea about going to grad school, and my family, my mother were living out in Northern California, so I had this idea about going out there and and going to Berkeley.
Mhm.
So I went out at one point to visit the family, and I toured Berkeley, and I went to the bookstore, and I came across a book on Louis Barragan.
Uh-huh.
And for some reason, when I was in school, it was not an architect I came across.
Yeah.
Back then when I was in school, everything was Mies van der Rohe, Korb, Gropius, Bauhaus, and yes, we did a lot of Frank Lloyd Wright and a lot of our own heroes back then.
Mhm.
Some of the New York Five and that group, but I hadn't come across Barragan, and I was looking at this book, and I still own this book to this day. I bought that book, and it just the simplest materials, making, perfectly balanced, the colors appropriate to the location. And there's
Mhm.
just something that struck me, that to create wonderful architecture with the fewest parts. And it wasn't some great, like a core doctrine about it. It just seemed like, he was an artist. He certainly understood space, both outside and inside. He certainly had to work with local materials. So that was very memorable to me, and that kind of sent me on my own research to find architects that worked, in that way, that used the fewest parts. And that's how some years later, coming out to California again, taking a tour of the King's Roadhouse, Schindler's King Roadhouse, and
Mhm.
again, this from 1920s, to see this house, and understanding that it was a series of parts, lift slabs that were put into place, and things were about assembly and craftsmanship and detail, and again, appropriate to the climate, where
Mhm.
it was built. So those are the kind of things that are very memorable to me. And I guess if I threw one more in there, Utzon on Utzon's Conley's house,
Mhm.
um, also is one of those, few parts, beautifully balanced, wonderful spaces, and just, so well conceived without getting overly complex, and not some great, architectural doctrine behind it. Just a great hand.
So have
Yeah.
you been there? Did you go to
No,
con?
no,
Oh, okay.
that's one place I have not been.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see it. It's in Mallorca. I don't know, if you can see it, but I
I think,
recently, they just published a book just on the house.
oh, they
And I
did? Oh,
recently
okay.
acquired that,
Yeah.
that book with beautiful photographs of that house. Just really,
Mhm. Yeah. I think you can go see it.
yeah, maybe at this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
not get them in their pajamas, right?
Yeah.
Like just show up.
Yeah, that's right.
Ah,
I know, I know. Well, I also had to go over the thing with the person that had taken them, is that like, things that you have to do on a tour bus. Like you don't pull up with a bus with 75 people on it and then just walk up to the door, with all of the people. Like first somebody, you guys know how it is, first you have one person walk up to the door, like, is
right.
everything okay for us to come in? Because you don't know what's going on with people in their house.
Oh my
I mean,
goodness.
God forbid anybody should have to do that at my house. Well, at my house, and if anybody's, so bus load of 75 people, like who knows what would be going on in here? I don't know. I don't know. So Jennifer, do you have three? Do you have three?
Oh gosh, I don't know. That's like a tough question for me. I mean, I'm mostly stuck on like little details, and I appreciate that kind of thing. I mean, I love, Eames, I love their home. That's just one of those places where
Huh?
I just find it so textural, tactile. It's a space that to me just is part of home, like what you want
Hmm.
that to be. And again, since we do focus a lot on residences, I think that's something that we spend a lot of time, especially, looking at like the details and the insides of that kind of thing. I mean, design is design. You could do that on any sort of practice, but for us, I just like the smaller details and focus in on that. So it's,
Macro, micro.
yeah, it is kind of like that. It's more, he's the broad stroke guy, and
Uh-huh.
then the rest of us try to figure out how to make it.
Yeah. And if you guys didn't figure out, like Stuart and Jen are both married to each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because sometimes you're like partners, but they're not really partners, but they are really partners.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Yeah. It's common in architecture. There's a lot of couple architectural architects and firms. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think-
I was married to, my late ex-husband was also an architect, but we never worked together. I mean, we did work together. We actually worked together at Mark Appleton's office on a project for like 6 months. And I think he was like harder on me than he was on anybody, else on the team. So I think that, yeah, we worked on the Glacier residence, the big project in the Telluride.
Oh,
Mm. Ah.
Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, I think for us, because we both do it for fun, I don't know. I'm not sure anybody else would put up with it. Like, it's kind of like the only thing we talk about and and I mean, and it doesn't, even though it's work related, it's still kind of our hobby. You know what I mean? Like things that we like.
No, I totally get it. No, I totally, yeah. Because for family vacations, we would go and like people that are with a couple that, where the wife or the husband isn't an architect, they're like, oh, well, no, I would never take them to go see architecture or something. And I'm like, well, it was just part of the experience, right? Like when we would go to my parents, are living outside of Joplin, Missouri. And so we had to fly into Tulsa. So we went to Bartlesville. We stayed at the Price Tower with the kids. And then we went to go see them. Yeah. Yeah. And this is when the kids were little. And then I went recently, like without the kids, just by myself. But, and people say like, now if I'm dating, they're like, why don't you try like somebody that isn't an architect? And I'm like, well, then I have to explain myself. I don't really have to explain myself or anything that I do. Right.
You're like, you get this, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, but it's true.
Yeah,
We do the same thing. Like we would take the kids, like we took them to Frank Lloyd Wright and to Falling Water as like an example. And they actually appreciated it. I mean, I thought it was super cool. And I think
they did do that. But we also dragged them to the Venice Biennale.
Oh my gosh.
And then like
I want to be your kid.
After a day and a half, they were like, could we not do this anymore? We're in Venice. Could we go on a gondola or do something touristy?
You're like, all right, let's go. That's kind of what we did.
Yeah. Well, Venice, I mean, it's like, what else are you gonna do there? I mean, you're like kind of,
I know.
It's Venice.
Yeah.
I mean, you can eat, right? But I mean, otherwise, like the architecture is around.
I know, it's in your face. It's pretty cool though, actually, when you think about it.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So what do you like about being an architect?
Oh, well, because I deal mostly with the interiors and working with a client in the detail aspect of things. I don't know, we're in bed with our clients for like 2-3 years, sometimes even longer, so I love getting into that kind of micro aspect of their lives. And really everybody does the same thing, and even like in the office with all of our coworkers, we're kind of, like whenever you're trying to explain something, it's like you do it, you get up every morning, you take a shower, you brush your teeth. None of this is new. It's not like all of a sudden we woke up and we do things differently. But people do have programmatic changes and they do have nuances that are, slightly different. And honestly, our best projects, best clients, are now our friends mostly. And, we go back to the home year after year. And, I think when they're part of the project, it's the best project. It's like we are educating even with everything that's available on the internet. Because, they come very educated mostly, right? But even with that,
a lot of Pinterest.
Pinterest
images,
info boards and stuff like that. Yeah, like some of it you have to retract and you have to, there's still a lot of stuff that you kind of don't know until you're explained, like, well, this is going to succeed for what you want more, right? That's pretty, that's beautiful, but what about this? And also your home is looking this way. And what about,
Yeah.
you know, the view, the sun, you know, so now you have those opportunities. But again, I love that. I mean, because we become so close with all the kids, and then, you know, and then the kids grow up. And I was on the phone this morning with Stu's first client's daughter. So we're talking about, and like they are still friends. They're the cutest together. And you know, she's got a new project. We're working on stuff. And again, I love that part of my job. I think that's the best part, because you know, you really become, you know, otherwise not having met them any other way, you know, you become friends and family. I mean, we know every detail about them, you know?
Yeah.
So I like that. I like that part.
You know, and kind of expand on that, which kind of answers the question as well. In reflecting on 40 years of doing this, I think that those relationships, I cherish them, and I think what I got out of it, what I do enjoy most are those relationships. And when we think back about all the situations and the stories that occurred, you know, for different clients and different projects, it's fascinating. It's one of the things we've been talking about in publishing a book, that's not just sort of pretty pictures of the work over a number of years, but relating and writing these narratives out, and thinking back and learning and revisiting the stories themselves, because and it's great. And then to come out of it and have these deep relationships is really great. And I think and that turns into, in a way, kind of an undercurrent marketing, right? It's not like active, we're going out there marketing, but because we have so focused, at least in the residential work, so focused on those kind of relationships, it inevitably turns around, like Jen said, you know, to the next generations, looking for us to help them out in whatever their architectural or interior needs are. So it's really fascinating. And Jen mentioned my first client, who's just turned 86, and we will be having dinner with him and his wife in a month. Every summer we get together in the Berkshires and get together. But we just finished recladding the house I designed freelance, by the way. It wasn't on my own yet, in 1979. So he's always looking for projects. And a little while ago, or you know, in the fall, we had this idea about starting to interview some of our past clients and clients that we're still in touch with and friends with, to get a sense of their what they think over the years, what's changed, and what our relationship was. And the interviewer, who was also the photographer, asked this client's name is Richard, and said, Richard, so after all these years of being with Narofsky, and he calls me Narofsky after all these years, I do not have a first name. And I call him, he's a retired doctor, and I refer to him as Dr. Dankner. So it is cute. But he was asked, so after all these years, what'd you get out of it? You know, besides the fact that you're friends and you still work together. And he said, I learned to look at things differently. And what was interesting about that was that the photographer asked me that question before we got there. You know, like, you know, and all these years with Richard, what did you get out of it? And I gave a very similar answer. And I thought that was kind of, you know, unique, that we both looked at all these years, that we look at things very differently because of our relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
No, that's great. And is that in the book then? Is that the book that
Well,
just
that's
came
the
out?
idea of bringing these narratives, these stories, because as you know, every project is not just you get hired, we solve a problem, design, get it built. Every project has very unique narratives behind it. And I think often in our profession, it's not talked about, you know, pretty pictures, successful plans, maybe, you know, theory, or certain design approaches are discussed, but I don't think it's too often that the human factor is discussed. And how
And I think we have
important
a
it is.
hard time. Yeah, I think we as architects sometimes have a hard time like explaining why we did something. and try to like, and then that kind of like comes into those like step-by-step processes that it's like with me, I'm kind of more intuitive with things. And so it's like, and then when I look back, I'm like, oh, wait a second. I feel like, it's like this design really reflects them, but it's like I didn't even realize that I was doing it sometimes, how
Yeah.
you're designing like something that's, like some attribute, from them, or like something like that you maybe didn't even know that you were doing with the designs.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes, you've got and often, and, we try to teach this to our young staff who are very idealistic, they have fabulous design tools at their hands if they're talented, and teach them about this balance, this sort of give and take again with who you're working with.
Mhm.
One sort of quick story about that is again a past client for many, many years, over 25 years, who came to us a number of years ago to design his dream home in Staten Island. And I'd never, other than driving through Staten Island, never been there. And so we met there, we drove around and we're looking at all these McMansions. And so here's a fellow who didn't come from money. He made money, became successful. Now he's going to found land and he's going to build his dream home in Staten Island, up on Tote Hill, this fancy place. And driving me around and looking at these columns and these capitals and all of these kind of tacky, unfortunately, I'm being critical, but tacky oversized McMansion things. And then we went back to the home they were living in at the time. And I thought about it and I said, it was another Richard. And I said, Richard, I think given that I've never worked here and the kind of thing you're looking at, that maybe it's best that you work with a local architect. Of course, I'll always be there for you to offer my consultation. And then he looked at me and he goes, Stu, he says, you're my freaking architect. You've been my freaking architect for 25 years. You think I'm going to
He
go?
didn't say freaking.
He
That.
didn't say freaking. I'm softening it. You're my freaking architect. And you think I'm going to go get another architect? He goes, you're going to design whatever I want you to design. So, that I came home that evening, I said that to Jen, and she's like, well, yeah, of course, this is all they see though. So what then it wound up becoming an educational process on our
Mhm.
end, them listening, us partnering, and honestly,
Yeah.
a beautiful, beautiful house came out of it. Really,
Mhm.
absolutely an incredible house. Because because of that relationship, we were able to have
Yes,
that
yes,
home.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it's interesting because I mean, like sometimes you'll go for an interview and then people are like, well, what would you do? And I'm like, okay, I don't really know you yet, so it's like I can't come up with something, I mean, I was like joking around on one of the other podcasts. I said, I'm not a Tinder architect, like, right, you just don't call me up when I come out, and it's like, okay, here's the design, it's like I'm not like that, I have to like get to know you and see. It's a relationship that you were working on for 25 years before like before you were doing his house in that particular space and things. And it's not, it's kind of the same. I mean, La Jolla out here is the same thing. I mean, there's like so much crap in La Jolla and people think like, oh my gosh, it's such a nice area. And I said, well, it's a nice area, but there's just so much crap because most of it's not designed by an architect, or it's designed by an architect that's just like, here, like this is, here, you said you wanted this, from this, and it looks like it's like 5 different designs like squished together. And
Yeah.
and then you're just like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe, that like this is here. You've got like this great, this great place, great ocean views, but then, it's like you're looking out at the ocean, but then you're looking back at the house and you're like, oh my gosh, I mean, there's so much of that stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah, it
All
really takes
opportunities lost,
Yes.
it is quite
Yeah.
sad.
Well, we're spoiled in a way, because we are so exposed to great architecture just
Mhm.
in what we do, and what we read and see. And when you drive around almost anywhere, you're shocked to find that it really isn't the norm. And I don't know if this statistic still holds, but I think in the last few years, a statistic of something like only 3% of the homes in this country are designed by architects.
Yeah.
And you know, we're lucky enough recently to get a commission to build a home in Malibu to help out someone who lost his home, unfortunately, and design
Mhm.
his home. I've been to California, but I never really took an intense tour of an area like that. And I was shocked to find, yeah, there's some very beautiful homes and cool homes. But for the most part, no. I mean, considering that environment, the views, the landscape,
Yeah.
I was shocked to see that there isn't as much good architecture there. What's remaining, of course, but
Mhm.
as one would expect in that environment,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of those places, I mean, back in the day, Malibu wasn't this like this wealthy area. It was just, it's more bohemian,
Yeah.
and kind of like it was more bohemian and people just lived there. And when I did the podcast with David Hertz from SEA, and he did Syndicrete, and he
Yeah.
kind of grew up in Malibu, and and he said, yeah, a lot of the people are not going to be able to rebuild because they just don't have it. It's like people think of Malibu as being like this super high-end area, but a lot of the people that lived there, they just had lived there for years, and so of course the
Yeah.
property was expensive, but the house that they were living in, it wasn't that
Yeah.
grand or anything like that. Yeah. Yeah. And then, a lot of those lots were brought up. I worked on a couple projects where, you know, lots were bought, right? They would buy, people would buy up like 4 lots and join them, along, because the typical lot in Malibu was not very, it was not very wide.
Yeah.
Any of these like estates, or, they're like several lots that they join together, and then, so yeah.
Yeah,
And then
we're going through it. Our lot is
Yeah.
really
Narrow.
difficult to build on.
yes, okay, there's a
Super hard.
narrow. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really like, and on a hill or a cliff, if you want to even, I mean, it's, yeah. it's tough.
Oh, yeah.
Is it on the ocean side or the other side?
The ocean side.
The ocean side.
It's
and it's on a cliff.
actually in a unique spot because it's the way the shoreline works, it kind of creates a little bit of a peninsula where the area where they are. So that their property faces east, south, and west.
Mhm.
So he sees the sunrise, he gets the sun all day, looking over the ocean, and
Uh-huh.
then he sees the sunset. So it's really interesting the way the house is situated
Yeah.
with an incredible exposure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hopefully,
Yeah. I mean, there's so
hopefully
that,
we'll get
and then
some,
what I was like explaining to somebody else, that they, I mean, and they were even from here. I guess they just weren't. I said, the beach in California, the beach belongs to everybody. So nobody has their own private beach. It's like anybody can walk. I said, any, movie star, any wealthy person, it's like they don't own the beach. So that's why anybody can like sit there if they want to go sunbathe in front of your house, they can, because everybody has access to the beach, so
cool.
yeah, there's gonna, yeah. Yeah. So Stuart, you're a fellow. So why did you go for fellowship, and what was your topic?
My topic was or object as they call it was
Yes,
design.
object. Yeah.
Um, I didn't start out to do it. It was actually a fellow architect, Mark Hutker, who sort of grabbed me. He had just gotten his fellowship in 214 or 215 and said, Narofsky, you're next, and sort of coaxed me into it.
Oh.
But it was a great experience. It was almost a year of putting all the materials necessary to submit together. So it was just the revisit to my history, to projects, and sort of reliving all that, putting it all together. And the fact that I was elevated, just my first submission 1 year in the design category. For me, that was huge because it's our peers
Right.
that I didn't I'm not very academic in that sense. I don't really sort of get into the hierarchy speak and academics about the profession. I'm pretty
Yeah.
grounded. So to have gotten that and understand that you know that was appreciated, that what we've done over the years was appreciated, was really just really felt great. And then on top of it, that particular year, our submission was then deemed to be a great example for anybody applying for the design object. And so that the following year they put it up as a prime example of what a really great submission looks like. So
Okay.
yeah, but it was a team effort. We had a consultant, people in our office obviously chipped in, and really we all worked at it as a team like it would on any project.
Mhm.
So it was really great. So it really getting that peer review and recognition was just felt great. Not so much having that F, but it was just the idea of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And Jennifer, did you apply?
No, no,
Okay.
I'm the support to this.
Okay.
I take out the trash at the end of the day,
No.
I like to be behind the scenes.
And I don't think I'll ever apply either because it's just, I don't know, I don't know, at this age, I just don't, I don't know. And then I don't want it to get kicked back. And then people are like, oh, what if it didn't get kicked back? And I'm like, I don't know, probably would. I'm sure it would, but it's like, I don't know.
Well, you never know, and you
It,
gotta be in it to win
you
it,
never
right?
know,
So,
and I would focus less on the idea of getting it
Mm,
and focus more on the idea that it's a great way to kind of revisit everything you've
yeah,
done. It's
yeah,
real a great, it's soul searching in a way.
yeah,
mhm.
So it's the experience of doing it um is just worth it. Actually a fellow architect at the Long Island chapter who did not get it. And I saw him at a meeting not too long ago, and I asked him if he was going to reapply, and he said no. He says, I'm not, he goes, yeah, I'm sure we could figure out why I didn't get it, but he goes, but it's enough. I goes, I enjoyed the process of everything that I did, and revisiting everything and documenting it and putting it together. I really enjoyed that process. I was very proud of what I've done. And if for whatever reason this year it didn't make the cut with the jury or whoever reviewed it,
Mhm.
I'm fine. I feel very good about it. And I can understand that.
Mhm. Mhm.
So there you
Yeah.
go.
I want to do design build. That's what I want to focus on right now.
Okay.
So,
We've been there
yeah.
too.
Yeah. And then maybe I would go, if I could do design build, then maybe I would do
yeah,
it.
design build.
So, uh, what would you like to say about the future of architecture?
Oh, you want to start on that one?
No, I mean, the future of architecture, it's a little scary, I think, especially with AI and,
Exactly.
even Stu going to talking about some of our young staff that never pick up a pencil. Never, I mean, we still have rolls of tracing paper, and I think, we're still, I'm like, got to look at things and give your hand and mind a little credit, that they're not. And so I'm really concerned about that future, because it's so easy now, even with AI, to almost pick all, like you were talking about, how some of those houses where it's just a crunch of different, things where
Yeah.
you're like, okay, there's every window in an Anderson catalog on the facade, but it could potentially get even worse, where you're looking at things that are just not thought out for the site, for the location, where you're
Yeah.
people, where you're bringing just homes that are anywhere in the world and then plopping them somewhere, because it's your dream, and everybody's entitled to that dream home, right? What was the children's book with like the purple house or whatever it was?
Mr. Plumbeam,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, everybody's
the
entitled.
big orange splotch. Every student should read that book.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it's really, you know, it's important to get your dream home, but it's kind of our job to educate, like, and we try all of our clients and our friends and family that, you know, there's so much more. And it doesn't have to be a 10,000 square foot home. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to be, you know, I mean, there's a lot to smaller spaces and enjoying the environment, telling clients, why don't we make a decision today so you can enjoy it tomorrow? Because there's always going to be a better idea, right?
Mhm.
So how do you capitalize on the moment and move on so you can get to that point? And hopefully we won't lose those details, those human details and experiences where we still have clients that call and say, oh my God, I just walked down the hall for the first time. I saw that window with the tree in the middle, and it's, you know, 8 years later. Did you do that on purpose? And he says yes. And I'm like, I don't know. But, you know, again, it's like, well, no, I know. I'm just joking, but I'm just saying, like, there's so many experiences in architecture and even the growth, right, of how you know, live and grow up in a home and how does
Mhm.
that tailor. So that's the future could be grim, but you know, hopefully as a profession will prevail
Yeah.
and we won't lose it, you know, just
Yeah.
hopefully.
And I think that's
And
that.
I think the thing with like the views is exactly, it's like, well, yeah, of course, you know, I mean, or like even if it's like 2 or 3 stories up and then there's a view and they're like, oh, how did you know? I'm like, well, that's because that's what I was thinking. Like we can envision that, you know, we see it like, okay, there's the view here. If we went up a couple stories, we would see that there. And then that's why I'm putting this window here to frame the view, you know, as opposed, and then a lot of times, you know, right, you've got these walls and walls of glass, and it's like, okay, you can have walls and walls of glass because of the thing, but really what makes that view special is the parameters beside and the, you know, and where it is in the house and how you're going to be able to use that space and then also see the view, you know.
Yeah.
But otherwise, right, we would just live outside with nothing around us.
That's
you
right. Well, it's up to us to structure that.
know.
My concern is that my hope is that with all the technology as it develops, especially with AI, obviously being a major player, is that ultimately it does revert to being a tool we use. You know, my concern is that what we see a lot of, especially with the younger generation, is that it's very easy to conceive things. It's very easy to have instant architecture, fabulous forms and shapes and environments and spaces. They're all derivatives. They're all, whether you're using AI or not, or just the regular tools, it's all derivatives of what the AI is thinking about dragging from in its, you know, billions and billions of, you know, bits of information that it could cull within microseconds and put together. And I find what happens is it's then what's lost is the experiential idea behind the spaces inside and out that we
Mhm.
create, and
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
scale and finding ourselves in the constant conversation with the young staff, you know, that are working on things and, oh, this is cool, and look at this and look at that. But what they're not getting is that human factor. As humans, we're still inhabiting it. And there's still a scale factor involved. There's lots of factors, but um, and that part seems to get lost because they're
Mhm.
not sketching, they're not being you know, hand-eye direct. Everything is
Yeah.
being sort of run through the machines. So then,
Mhm.
in some sense, my fear is that the machines will start designing. It'll be like that movie Meet the Robinsons, and woo, instant stuff that kind of happens instantly, instant architecture, you know, or, and we see a lot of this, the ease of hitting the button to repeat things. So just the quickness of repeating things, and in that sense, maybe a homeowner or a builder may say, well, what do I need an architect for? I mean, there's just I could just hit the button and it, it's done, and then we can just sort of ultimately develop it into enough material that a builder could work from it, right? Because the AI will develop even the building techniques that would start informing machines and robots that will fabricate and build. So, I think we
All right,
have
now you're going to future.
no, but that's
From AI now to robots.
but that's what's happening, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
3D,
yeah. No, I think, I mean, well,
printed
prefab
building,
housing,
right?
prefab housing is like, they use robots for a lot of that. It's
Sure.
all built with robot. Yeah.
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 So, you can imagine that so I do think, and I hope that what starts to happen is that the human factor in us as creators will come back and will be reinforced, that we can sketch, we can think, and then we'll have these incredible tools,
Yeah.
that then could, make realization out of it.
Yeah. And I mean, I think there's definitely that. And I mean, you can even see it with, with like some architects, the way that they're using AI, it's like they're getting much better images than somebody that isn't as good a designer, just from the input that they're putting in. I did this one with Greg Tate where he's just doing architectural renderings. I mean, he's not doing any architecture from it. I mean, they're just like purely these architectural rendering, and they're really beautiful. But I mean, he can design on his own, but he just started coming up with this. And his dad was a photographer, and so he has all this imagery, and he has a lot of imagery, and he grew up, surfing and stuff. So he has all this imagery about surfing and the freeways and just kind of like all of that Southern California thing. But it's surrealism, basically, I mean, and they're beautiful images, but it's like, oh, are we really going to have something like that? No, probably not. I mean, we're not going to have, like, the freeways aren't going to become like these water slides and stuff like that. But we're still going to be on it. But the imagery is beautiful. But yeah. And then I just think, as far as the conceptual thought, I mean, is missing from AI, like it is from a lot of architecture or even architecture programs, because that conceptual thought is not being taught kind of in the schools, because they're getting so, it's like they're not picking up pencils and like sketching. I mean, I do everything by hand, and it's like if I need somebody to do it in CAD, I'll have them do it in CAD or, ArchiCAD or something to do it that way. But otherwise, I'm like, but then even, people are like, oh, why don't you use like one of these services that will just, I do a lot of addition remodels. And so why don't you just use like one of these services that just measures everything with laser, and, and I'm like, because I want to do it, because I want to get to know the building. That's part of my process. Part of my process is to measure the building, in order to do it, and to recognize all of these things that you see, right? That you see. I mean, if you're taking somebody's plans and you've never been to the site, it's like, how are you supposed to be designing for that? I mean, you've never been to the site before.
Well, you shouldn't be. Yeah, you're not
Yeah.
part of it. I learned something interesting last night, actually, watching a series with our daughter, who's home for the summer, who's studying animation. So there was a commercial, it was an Airbnb commercial, actually, which is an animated thing. And she looked at me and she goes, "Oh, I hate AI." And I go, "What do you mean?" She goes, "No, AI designed that." And I go, "Well, I'm sure that it was used." She goes, "No, AI designed it." She goes, "You could see that a person was not involved in creating and modeling those figures." Now, that's not something I would recognize. And 1 year of learning or getting early, her early, learning about her future profession, that just even to pick up that nuance, that was not, that human, and was not much human involvement in developing the characters and the environment there, that it was so AI driven, that in her eye it just didn't look right. It was not creative. It was just, lacking something.
And I mean, with animation, right? Animation, they can send a lot of these things, like, to just, if they, you know, I mean, it's like a drafting service in India or whatever, right? I mean, so it's like they can send a lot, but what they can't do, and what our friend that's in the field did that was, you know, I mean, he developed characters for Frozen, and but he said, you know, he's like seen sketchbooks of my son's, that he said, like, well, you know, he actually knows how to draw. A lot of these people don't know how to draw, you know, so he can come up with these things. And if somebody says, like, oh yeah, I did, that he's coming up with like these whole things, he goes, and they can't farm that out. Like, they need people to be storyboard artists, you know,
Right.
to like sit there with the people. And, you know, because you've seen, there was this show that we saw with it was all the directors, and it was their sketches, and it was hilarious because some of them like can't draw. I mean, like Martin Scorsese, I'm like, his sketches are like hilarious for all of his stuff because he can't draw, but there's just like red marker everywhere for all the blood on everything.
Oh,
so they'll be like
oh my
these
God, that's
like stick
perfect.
figures or whatever.
Yep.
And then the same thing like uh oh gosh, who's the other? Quentin Tarantino. It's the same thing,
Oh
like
my
he can't
gosh, I
really
would
draw,
imagine
but
for
you know,
sure.
obviously, like Tim Burton was in the show, and Tim Burton can draw, so his things were like very, very much, but you know, a lot of the directors like couldn't draw at all, but yeah, I could just remember that from it was all this red for all the blood and everything. It's,
Oh, I
but
love
you know,
that.
again, right, that's like something they have the image in their head, but
Right.
physically they can't develop the space of it until they like see it, right? So if they're saying, oh yeah, you're in a room, you know, where describing, I mean, we'd probably make incredible directors in art direct. I mean, like people, you know, out here when the construction industry was like, you know, hitting the skids, they, you know, they went into, you know, Disney animation and all of those things because they could still, you know, use those skills in order to create all of this stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yes, set design, art direction,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were architects.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so if you look at the
Yeah.
history of film, many of the sort of memorable environments that were created were done by architects. The early James Bond films, all of those villain, you know, places inside volcanoes and everything. This was an architect that got involved with it because there were no commissions in England in the late 50s, early 60s. You know, so got involved with people somehow in the movies and started having, you know, being able to design these incredible visions, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
it's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to say?
I don't know. I think we covered a lot. That was
You have your
interesting.
book, right? Did you the book? Is that book just for you, just for your office, or is it part of or are other people in the book?
No, it's you know, it's in its infancy, but I've got it kind of have it outlined, and I have some chapters kind of, you know, penned out and written. But yeah, no, it's the idea would be again revisiting 40 plus years, and these narrative stories, and it's not just all relationships. It's not just relationships with necessarily with clients, and how that, but sometimes relationships with a place.
Mhm.
You know, so like, you know, conversations, a number of years ago, we designed a hotel in Bolivia on
Mhm.
South America, and learning about what works there, building there,
The
the
environment,
environment, the
materials,
materials and the craftsmen,
the culture.
yeah,
It was
everything
everything. It was
everything
like a deep
and
dive.
being immersed in, yeah, and so that created this a whole different kind of relationship that we became part of, you know.
Huh.
So it's not just that another chapter deals with a community on Long Island that was an old bungalow colony, and prior to that it was a sand and gravel pit or a quarry, and how people in as the community developed to a wealthy community would knock these bungalows down and build new homes.
Mhm.
And we've done 5 homes in this community, 6 underway. And but the buildings are next to each other. It's almost on a cliff overlooking the water. It's a very unique community. And it's a co-op. And so the relationship of being almost part of that co-op, though that community, those people how to build within this very, very tough hill environment. So that to me is another story, another set of relationships that we had to develop. So it's that kind of variety.
Yeah.
In
Did
fact,
you have a book? You had a book on Instagram though. Didn't you have a book on
yes, yeah,
Instagram?
we
Okay.
published a book in 2008 or 9
Okay.
that kind of celebrated 25 years of work.
Okay.
It's also
Okay.
interesting, and then just to kind
Yeah.
of end on that, the photographer we've been working with for all these years mostly photographed most of our and obviously a good friend at this point is writing a chapter.
Oh, great.
And so that it's that kind of mixed bag of
Yeah.
stories.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
all
about
part of your
legacy.
process.
And
Yeah.
also legacy, I think, right? Because
Mhm.
as architects, it's tough. It takes a long time to get to a place where you're super proud of your work and yourself and everything you've kind of built. And as you know, it's not a solo
No, not at all.
road. You're with
Yeah.
many people and you're with
Yeah.
a lot of support, family, friends, the works, right? And all of your
Mhm.
staff and that you have over the years. So this kind of thing, it's
That's right. Which we stay in touch with, by the way.
yeah.
It's amazing, really. The
Yeah.
big
No,
family.
we've been pretty lucky.
Yeah.
Really lucky. So yeah.
Okay.
She has.
Wow.
I know. I'm looking to see if she she just sent the email.
Fleetwood.
Um, so thank you to Fleetwood Windows and Eggersman USA. Again, so Eggersman was whole home solutions tailored to your lifestyle. Discover more at eggersmanusa.com. And Fleetwood Windows and Doors. Thank you very much. Thanks. And I'm going to turn it off and then I'll finish up with you guys. Thank you so much, Stu and Jen. Thanks.
Okay.
Appreciate the invite. It's fun.